Good morning. Now we are going to see an important portion called clauses. We have already seen if conditionals. It is a part of the same, but we have to see different kinds of clauses. Actually, before seeing clauses, we have to see what a phrase is, because clause is an extended part of phrase. Phrase is a group of two or more words that either express a thought or function as a particular part of speech in a sentence. Phrase is nothing but a group of words. That's how we can remember, which is a part of a sentence. It may give a meaning, but we cannot call it a complete sentence. Phrase is part of a sentence, but not a complete sentence. Whereas clause differs from a phrase and it has its own subject and verb. Clause has its own subject and verb. It is an important part that we should remember, because in a sentence normally we will see subject and a predicate. Predicate doesn't mean that it is a verb, minimum of a verb, and extra words or other components of a sentence. Here in clause also we find a subject and verb, minimum of a subject and verb. And third point is, a clause can be a sentence. It allows some clauses to be a sentence, right? So we will see in detail more. Okay, so what are the types of clauses we have? One is called independent clause, the other one is subordinate clause. Independent clause can stand alone as a simple sentence. This is what we were about to say in the previous slide. This sentence can also be called an independent clause, or we can call main clause, right? Independent, that word adjective should be noted. Independent clause can stand alone as a simple sentence which has its own subject and verb and gives a complete meaning, complete sense. This is referred as main clause. This we have seen. For example, you have nice smile. It is a complete sentence and it is very independent for its meaning, right? It doesn't depend any other part of a sentence or any other part to have a complete meaning. It is an independent clause. The second type is subordinate clause. It is also called dependent clause. See the difference. An independent clause is called main clause, but subordinate clause is called dependent clause. Cannot stand alone. The subordinate clause cannot stand alone as a separate sentence, because for its complete meaning it has to depend the other part of a sentence. For example, like despite the fact you knew, or before we leave. See, for example, with this we have to add another part called main clause or independent clause. Let us take before we leave. What can we say a sentence along with this? Before we leave, we have to check whether the door is closed. Yes, before we leave, we have to inform the teacher. Something we can say like this. So here, before we leave, is a subordinate clause. It's a clause actually because it has a subject we and verb leave, right? But along with before it becomes a clause, subordinate clause or dependent clause. It has a subject and verb but doesn't stand alone. It cannot stand alone for a complete meaning. We cannot say before we leave as a sentence. It hangs, the meaning hangs without the completeness. Okay. Now let us see the different types of clauses. Again in detail. First we saw main types. These are all. Again a few more types according to the role of the clause. Okay, according to the function of the clause. Noun clause we will see. Actually nouns, you know the meaning of noun, definition of noun. In a sentence it may do a different role. Nouns have many roles in a sentence like subject, appositives, direct object, indirect object or object of preposition. Multiple roles a noun is doing in a sentence, and here instead of a noun we can use a clause which does this kind of role in a sentence. So these noun clauses start with question starters like who, what, where, when, why, how, as well as the words like that, whether, whom, whoever and whomsoever. Example we can see, I see Robin. Here the word Robin is a noun, I is a pronoun form. Okay. I is the subject of the sentence, see is the verb, Robin is the object, right? Because we get the meaning of the question, what do I see? For this question, what do I see? We get the meaning, answer as Robin. So Robin is the object of the sentence. The pronoun Robin is the direct object of the verb see. Another example, I see that Robin finished 3 books already. Here a very lengthy part is there. I see what? We ask question and get the answer, lengthy answer as I see that Robin finished 3 books already. What do I see? That Robin finished 3 books already. So this clause starting from that to the end is a clause, but it is incomplete. It doesn't stand alone. That Robin finished 3 books already is a clause instead of a noun, or that is object in place of object. The noun clause that Robin finished 3 books already is functioning as a direct object of the verb see. The clause functions as object, but actually it replaces a noun, right? I see dash, I see anything, right? I see an object, we can say anything. Instead of that noun form we use a lengthy clause here as a direct object. I hope you understand noun clause now. Okay, so here some of the examples are there. You can underline which is clause according to you, or according to your understanding. What is clause? Noun clauses here. Number 1, James was wondering what Wednesday's lineup is going to be. Here James was wondering, subject and verb, and the next part is an object, right? James was wondering what, completely starts from what to the last is the object. Okay, so it is a clause actually. What Wednesday's lineup, it's a subject, is going is a verb. Okay, so here this is noun clause. Our intention is that we are able to visit the Eiffel Tower on our way through Paris. Our intention is, then starts the clause, that we are able to visit the Eiffel Tower on our way through Paris. So let us see for all, which are all noun clauses, right? You can also try for the rest and see which are all noun clauses. Now let us see adjective clause. The subordinate clause functions as adjectives. Actually, you should know the definition of adjective. Adjective is a word which defines or adds extra meaning to a noun or pronoun, isn't it? We know the definition of adjective. So here the subordinate clause which is going to function as adjective when they describe or modify nouns or pronouns. Yes, they answer the questions what kind or what one, which one. Now we will understand, we will get answer adjective. It begins, adjective clause begins with a relative pronoun who, whose, whom, that, or which, or the subordinating conjunction like where or when. Let us see an example. The painting which had a price tag of $10,000 was too expensive. Right here, the painting is the subject of the sentence. We can see we can remove the italicized words and still we get a clause which is a main clause or independent clause. The painting was too expensive. Now, the painting has a definition, extra meaning or extra information as adjective which had a price tag of $10,000. The adjective clause which had a price tag of $10,000 is modifying the noun painting, right? Instead of telling the painting, we define with extra information of what kind of painting or which painting was we are talking about in the sentence. So, the adjective, the clause functions as an adjective. So, we call adjective clause, right. Now, from these examples you can identify adjective clauses which modifies what. Did you spill the glass of milk that was in the refrigerator? Here, which is adjective clause and what is defined? Did you spill the glass of milk? Which glass of milk? That was in the refrigerator. So, here milk is the word which is defined by what? A clause called that was in the refrigerator. So, that was in the refrigerator becomes adjective clause. We call it clause because it has a subject and verb, minimum of subject and verb. That becomes the subject of the clause and was is the verb. Second example, the police are searching for the person who lives in this apartment. The police are searching for the person who is the person who lives in this apartment. We define or add extra information about the person through an adjective clause, right. Who lives in this apartment is the adjective clause which defines the word the person. Now, let us see for the next remaining. You can also work out for the remaining. I am sure it was the car whose tail light was broken. This document is a piece of evidence that is important. Okay. Now, let us see the third type, adverb clause. Do you remember the definition of adverb? the role of adverb in a sentence? Adverb, like adjective, adverb also defines or adds meaning to a noun, verb, adjective or another adverb. So, a clause or a subordinate clause which does the role of an adverb is called adverb clause, right. Adverb subordinate clause answers to the question word where, when, how or why. Adverb clauses begin with subordinating conjunctions such as because, although, once, until and after. As he set the cup down, coffee spilled all over his shoe. As he set the cup down, it is a clause which gives the answer to the question when. Yes, coffee spilled all over his shoe is a main clause, independent clause, and we give extra information through this clause. As he set the cup down, it is a situation, right. In what situation coffee spilled all over his shoe, we are giving through a clause. The adverb clause as he set the cup down modifies the verb spilled. Here in the clause we find subject and verb, and it does not give a complete meaning, it does not stand alone, and it depends the other part of sentence, that is main clause. Next example, Alison played the piano longer than David did. The adverb clause here, than David did, which modifies the adverb longer. Yes, Alison played the piano longer. Longer modified the action played, and again the adverb clause than David did modified the word longer. Adverb to the adverb. An adverb will modify another adverb also. That is how we saw the definition, isn't it? Adverb will define or modify a verb, an adjective or another adverb. Here this adverb clause defined another adverb, right. So, here from these examples you can identify adverb clauses. Because the book was old, it was kept behind class. Here it was told as a reason. The book was kept behind the glass. The clause, adverb clause gives a reason, answers to the question why. Because the book was old. The second one, this dining room set is, the dining room set is yours provided that your payment goes through. Here this dining room set is yours, and it gives the condition provided that your payment goes through. Mark is not allowed to leave even if he insists on going. You can identify the adverb clauses for the different questions, examples. Even if he insists on going. Before the sun was up, I was ready to go. It tells the situation, that it answers to the question. This is timing. When he acted as if he belonged there. The clause defined the verb act. Thank you.